All right, welcome to another episode from the Chart Reader. So we're going to take a look at three today. We'll look at INDO, HUSA, and TPEP, all right? And clearly the play on these three is oil, which obviously means it has a lot to do with the war news that's going on, right? So look, there are people that will not trade sectors or stocks because of what they represent. All right, I know people that they hate drugs so much they would never trade an alcohol ticker, tobacco, et cetera, et cetera. Right? This is an ugly thing to trade. It really is, right? This is where that quote, I'm butchering it, but blood on the streets is money in the pockets, right? Like it is some of the saddest thing to do, right? But hey, end of the day, we're here to trade, right? And you hear me say I treat these all as three, four, or five different letters and random company, this and that. And I think this is kind of the loudest place I do it. It is horrible to trade it, believe me. I'm not pretending it's not, right? But hey, I'm not here to judge. I hope you're not here to judge. We're here to trade, right? So yeah, just obviously all that said, I'm not here to talk about politics. I'm not here to talk about things that I don't even pretend I know, right? Like I really don't listen to news a lot. It's such a depressing thing, but this is hard to ignore, right? And really there's so much oil that's produced in the region, right? The Middle East, and there's always tension, right? And right now it is touching several countries. It is expanding beyond the Middle East itself, right? Like there's just so much going on, and obviously that's what's bringing a lot of the attention, right? What I actually found very surprising, and obviously I'll talk about the stocks themselves shortly. The Nasdaq had a really good day. It actually had an almost 1% day. It bounced on the 20 like a technical beauty. Like I'm very surprised it was a green candle, let alone that high of a green candle, let alone getting actually right back over the 8 moving average that we've been under the last couple 3 days of trading, right? Looking at the S&P 500, the exact same thing, almost 1% day, very strong technical bounce, very much over the 8 moving average. By no means is this what I expected given all the headlines that we saw, right? Even the Dow Jones, this thing actually smashes 3 moving averages today, including the 200, right? So, I'm surprised the market was as green as it was. You know what I mean? So, I wanted to start with Indo first. So getting to these, and obviously I'll give you my thoughts coming up, right? We actually could have used these lines very, very well, right? It basically ran to the last line a little bit higher, right? But my lines aren't here for perfect, right? But this thing actually opens all the way up here. We're now down here, right? That's not something I like to see. However, just kind of comparing it to the last few days, we're still over moving averages. There's arguably some decent things going on here as long as we don't lose some key lines, right? HUSA is basically going to look exactly the same, right? We gap up and open all the way up here. The drop wasn't as bad, so that's at least a decent thing to say, right? But I never like it when we open up here and close down here, right? That's not what I want my green days to look like. I want it to look like this, where we open down here and go all the way up there. Even this, right? That's way better than that. But nonetheless, that's not a horrible candle comparatively. And again, we're still over the key lines. And then TPET, I said TPEP, I think it's TPET, the petroleum one. That's a really interesting doji on a really interesting moving average, right? So, I'm always here to respect the doji. I'll still call it 50-50. Obviously, I wish that it closed above the line instead of under the line, but hey, it would have still been a 50-50 doji, right? But maybe I'm leaning a little bit more towards the worrisome than the more confident side, but 50-50 is 50-50, right? So maybe it's a good thing that it's down here and it keeps us sharp and on, right? So, um, you know, I might try to cover a couple other ones, but real quick, with the NASDAQ looking that good and stuff, just very, very quickly. Tesla had a really solid candle, and it looks like it's trying to recover all the moving averages right there. BBAI, one more time, is trying to go after that 100 moving average right there, right? And SoFi has actually broken it and has been over all the lines and seemingly going, right? So we talked about the 16 target, and we're basically halfway there, right? So tech is looking good, like I showed in the beginning, right? So just maybe keep that in mind if these don't. if these don't do the wartime pop that we're expecting. All right, so before we do go any further, though, and I give you more of my thoughts and opinions, what are we going to do? Same thing we always do, right? We'll take a look at the daily and the weekly to see how these things are setting up short term. We have our 5 moving averages. There are horizontal support and resistance lines that I do draw manually myself. And then when we are done up here, we'll use the MACD, RSI, and volume as our lower indicators. Hey, really quickly, if you can, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video online with your friends. Comment good or bad if you disagree. Look, anything you can do helps so much with these YouTube algorithms. But for real, just being here, giving me your time, oh, I'm so grateful for it, all right? So let's take a look at what's going on. I for sure see things continuing to drop after hours. I'm gonna say it, and I say it all the time. I'm for now ignoring the after hours. It's obviously not a good thing. I don't think it's too loud. Let's see what happens. All right, but I'm gonna combine all these together because really the thought is the same for all of them. All right. INDO and HUSA, at least for sure, are the most linked together because you can see it. INDO is above all 5 moving averages. HUSA is above all 5 moving averages. Arguably not fantastically, though, right? That's a good candle, no confirmation. That's a good candle, no confirmation yet. So, yeah, we're definitely over them, but this thing hasn't confirmed just yet. And then TPET is still under at least the 5th one, right? So you can almost say it's a 1, 2, 3 kind of gradual, right? Indo's over, HUSA is close, hasn't confirmed, and then this one's still under, right? Normally, one thing I do is I say, hey, make sure you look at the markets. Excuse me, make sure that the markets are looking good before you trade, right? Because it's important to know what the ocean looks like. Truly, to me, I almost don't care what the market looks like. And arguably, I think a bad NASDAQ, S&P 500, and Dow Jones would be good for these, right? Because again, I'm kind of, these are just opinions. Let me know if you disagree, right? But I think in my head, if the 3 indices are doing bad, that means war fears are going up. That should mean oil stuff is going to go up. That should mean these 3 are going to go up, right? So I think in a little bit of a way, the fact that the S&P 500 had a monster day probably lines up. The one thing I want to look at, oh, my wife is here. Let me close the door real quick. Hi, I'm still recording. 1 minute. So let me look at the hourly. So this is the day, right? Today was the 23rd. Each of these represents a 1 hour day. So this was doing really poorly until that 2 o'clock candle. I swear I didn't. Oh, look, I was wrong. Anyway, so it was incorrect. But interesting. Around. Well, no, yeah, that's correct. That's exactly what we wanted to see, right? S&P 500 goes up and continues right here. That makes Indo go down and continue, right? Does it do it for HUSA? Not as loudly, but you can easily see that has the bad red candle as opposed to the good green candle, right? And then TPET. Yeah, same thing. I promise you, I did not rehearse that before I started hitting record. I promise you. Look at it, same thing, right? NASDAQ at this 2 o'clock candle pops hard. All of a sudden, everything turns. S&P 500 pops hard, and all of a sudden, the 1, 2, 3 do really poorly. So I think that does echo the thought. If the indices do bad, these should do good. All right, so that's at least the first baseline thought. Next thing, hey, you know I don't like to brag about my lines, but these lines were pretty solid right there, right? And what were we looking at? Nice, yeah. So, oh no, too much. Not that 11. It was this. We were basically looking at this summer of 2022 range, right? There's a couple valleys right there, and then there's a couple peaks right there. That's where we got those 2 lines. It pretty much hit it right there, and there was a whole mess of nothing in between that, right? So really nice to see that these lines did hold up. Obviously, you know I don't want to just hit the line and then lose it, so that's very disappointing. But overall, I think I'm still seeing more decent on all 3 of these, all right? Look, I hate a stock that opens all the way up here. You can see this. Look in the box over there. It opens at $6 and it fell all the way down to 4. More people lost what? 30%, right? Basically $2 on a $6 stock. more people lost a third than, you know, that little baby red that it shows, right? Like that is not a good thing, let alone anyone that bought all the way up here, right? So that's not the candle I want to see. But hey, we're still over the 8 moving average. We're relatively okay, right? Like I would say 50% candle was right about there. I really don't want to go below 475, all right? I still see after hours dropping. That's definitely very disappointing. That's now a bigger drop for sure. It actually still looks like the 8 moving average is holding with it. But again, regular hours matter more. That's obviously what I care about. And hey, I think we're all really just trying to see what the next thing is going to be, right? There was already an Iranian, what is it called, retaliation, something about a base, right? I don't know if we're gonna end up doing nothing, right? So it's just it's the saddest thing to talk about, right? But that's what we're looking for here, right? And again, the same candle comments going across these. I don't like a stock that opens up here at 21 and then drops to 18, right? That's about a 10% loss is really what it is, not a 25% gain, right? Obviously is if you were before it, but I like to look at day to day, right? So not a beautiful candle. And again, we talked about it. That's a good candle overall five, but that's not confirmation. That's a good candle over all five lines, right? But none of those three are confirmation. We still haven't confirmed, all right? I very much am okay with this as long as we can hold 1540. But let's be honest, a drop from 18 to 15 is pretty bad, actually. That's actually almost a 20% loss, right? Rounding to about $3 right there, right? So the real goal is to get back over 20, right? I'm clicking on 1993. That's probably a good year right there. $19.93 is what we would love to get over. If the HUSA can get over that, that should do really well. And then TPET, I mean, look, this is probably the most neutral candle, right? If you look in the box over there, this thing basically opens and moves a single penny on the body. What's really disappointing is the fact that this thing ran all the way up to two something and then came back down, right? I don't have lines here. Let's draw some lines. Okay, so what does 50% look like? Okay, what does the bottom look like? Okay, so we do need to draw this. You can see it's about 50% roughly of both of those, kind of the bottom and the top of that. I'll draw that line and then I will draw that line. Okay? I don't think I want to draw anything else. Now, look, this is an interesting one. You see, I'm clicking at the bottom of this. It's almost perfectly 50% of this right there. So maybe it's worth, I'll draw it. I think that's not bad, right? I'm basically clicking on half of that. It's almost perfectly the bottom of that right there, right? So I think these are the three lines up if we break the two. Look, this stock is all about $1.82. If this can get over $1.82, it should start to run to these lines right there. If it can't, that's going to be game, and we're going to be coming down to $1.50, right? Just look at this. Look at the purple line. Since the existence, we've actually never been able to break it and confirm, right? Decent candle over it, no confirmations, attempt. We haven't in a long time, right? So really, since the existence of that purple line, we haven't gotten over it. So don't underestimate it. And I think that goes to show you, even though we ran all the way up there, that line, it's the last one for a reason. It sucked us all the way back down and under, right? So this one's a little tight. I think I would say, that's literally where we're at. What's this? And that's that. As long as this stays over $1.60, I think it's bullish. I do. Obviously, the easy number to say is $1.51. I hope we don't go that low, right? I think as long as it can hold $1.60, that'll be really good. $1.51 is the number below it. If this breaks 180, those are the lines that I'm expecting, right? I don't think I said the numbers for INDO, so let me do it really quickly. INDO, this thing needs to get over 525, all right? This obviously had the best volume going into the day, right? You can see Indo had 50 million, HUSA had 12 million, and then TPET had the least, I imagine, with 10 million, right? So a lot of eyes are on Indo. If this can get over 525, I'll set that alert. Look, an alert's not an immediate buy notification. Let me know if it's a penny higher. It's not an immediate buy, but hey, come check it out for sure, and I would be very interested over 525. Bad things will happen if this thing loses the 8 moving average. It's right around 450. Really, I would call that the death line. If we lose $4, it will be a very fast fall into the threes. So do not lose four. Really, the goal is to not go below 460, give or take, right? So those are the Indo yeah, I think I did all three pretty well. Let me know if I missed anything again one more time. I know the ugliness that is trading these stocks, right? It is such a dirty thing. Believe me, in a lot of ways, I think you're a better person than I am if you ignore stuff like this and trade other things because there are so many tickers out there and it's really easy to avoid these, right? The problem is volume and momentum and that's what we're here for, right? So let me know your thoughts, let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Oh, I appreciate you so much.